Hello again, I'm back. Sorry about that. If you just joined me and then I disappeared. Right, Pops, come here. Don't be a menace. Oh my. Sorry about that. We lost internet outside, so I'm inside. Which means you don't get the bird song. Excuse me while I put the dog. But we're here and we're... I've lost my place. We're on Acts chapter 25. And if you missed me earlier, I was praying, saying, Lord, we can't do a day, whether it's a Monday or a Friday or whatever day it is, Saturday. We need you, Holy Spirit, so fill us today. So here we go. Now, we are in the last few chapters of the book of Acts, chapter 25, and this is a long process, a bit drawn out really, of Paul going through various trials and appearing before various governors and rulers and different people. Good morning, Kathy and Sarah and Karen. Great to see you. So it says, so you remember he's just been seen by Felix. Felix was the Roman governor, the procurator. He was the procrastinating procurator, and he didn't get on and make a decision. We had the plot, and Caroline very wonderfully pointed out what happened to the guys who bound themselves over to not eat or drink until Paul was dead. I don't know if they died very, very thin, having failed in their mission or what, but we certainly don't get to hear the end of that story, except that Paul's still alive 2 years later, and so they have not succeeded, which I think is brilliant. And we can, this sometimes just listening to the devil's plans and schemes to wipe out the church, and all he does is shoots himself in the foot again. Look at my little tiny cup. I hope... am I still frozen? I'm sorry. This isn't going well, is it, today? Let me see if we got internet. I think we have here. Good morning, Emma and Jonathan. Sorry, Fran. Is anyone... Just give me a wave if you're getting me. That would be helpful. Anyway, so now Felix has been succeeded by Porcius Festus. Felix was a useless king, a useless procurator. Felix evidently was a much better person. Thank you, Phil and Chris. Good to see you. According to Wikipedia, at any rate. So, no, sorry, no, it wasn't Wikipedia, someone else. Anyway, now after 3 days, Festus had arrived in the province. He went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea, and the chief priests and the principal men of the Jews laid out their case against Paul, and they urged him, asking as a favour against Paul that he summon him to Jerusalem, because they were planning an ambush to kill him on the way. Now, these governors and procurators, whatever, they know what troublesome people these Jews are, and they want to try to accommodate them as much as possible. That's why they prevaricate and don't make decisions and get on with it, because they realise that Paul's innocent, but nonetheless the Jews are difficult, and they're a difficult people to govern. I'm not being racist, I'm just saying that at this time in history they were a difficult people to govern by the Romans, and they had very powerful forces at work, like the Zealots, who were literally terrorists who would attack the Roman soldiers just, at any given opportunity. And it was a very unpredictable, volatile province for the Romans to govern. And in 70 AD, they kind of put their foot down with a firm hand and crushed Jerusalem to literally nothing. Anyway, so they planned an ambush. They wanted Festus to get Paul to go to Jerusalem to stand trial, so he'd have to leave. He was in a very pleasant little deal at Caesarea, being kept under arrest, but, all expenses paid, and being visited by his friends. And having some degree of freedom. Anyway, so verse 4, Festus replied that Paul was being kept at Caesarea and that he himself intended to go there shortly. So, said he, let the men of authority among you go down with me, and if there's anything wrong about the man, let them bring charges against him. So he's saying, I'm going to Caesarea. Why don't you people, you're people in authority, come with me and we'll do it there. We'll hear what you've got to say. Verse 6. After he'd stayed among them for not more than 8 or 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he took his seat on the tribunal and ordered Paul to be brought. When he had arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many and serious charges against him that they could not prove. Paul argued in his defense. So he's his own defense. He doesn't have an attorney helping him, but he's a smart guy, Paul. Neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I committed any offence. So that was the basis of Paul's defense of himself. So he says, I haven't offended, I haven't broken any law of the Jews or the temple or Caesar. So kind of leave me alone, really. Verse 9, but Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favour, so here we are, he wants to curry favour with these powerful Jews, said to Paul, do you not wish to go up to Jerusalem and there be tried on these charges before me? So he has to treat Paul with some degree of respect because he knows now that Paul is a Roman citizen, and that's why he's there under armed guard in Caesarea. Verse 10, but Paul said, I am standing before Caesar's tribunal where I ought to be tried. To the Jews I have done no wrong, as you yourself know very well. If then I am a wrongdoer and have committed anything for which I deserve to die, I do not seek to escape death. So he's not saying, listen, if there's anything that I've done that deserves me to die, fine, I'll die. But I don't actually believe I have, and I should be tried by the Roman government, because here I am, I'm standing before Caesar's tribunal, and that's where I ought to be tried. And he's saying, like, basically, get on with it, do your job. Anyway, right, so he says, I do not seek to escape death, but if there's nothing to their charges against me, no one can give me up to them. I appeal to Caesar. And this is Paul's moment. This is his ace card up his sleeve. I would imagine over the 2 years he's reached this decision this isn't a spur of the moment thing. He's saved his ace of spades to play at this point, and he says, I appeal to Caesar. Verse 12, then Festus, when he had confirmed with his council, answered, to Caesar you have appealed, to Caesar you will go. You shall go. And that's the point. So once Paul had made this appeal, it was like he was stating, really, I am not getting justice through these lower tiers of Roman government. Therefore, I now appeal to the highest authority in the empire. I appeal. So it's like saying, I'm not getting justice through the court system. I appeal to the High Court, or I appeal to whatever it is now. We're not in Europe. The European Court of Human Rights would have been a thing. I'm not sure how it works now. Good morning, Kev. Good morning, Alison. And so he's saying, I appeal. Basically, I'm saying this is not working out. You can see you're not dealing with me justly. I appeal to Caesar. So he has a right to do that. Apparently, every Roman citizen had a right to appeal to the highest court in the empire if they were not getting justice in the lower tiers of the justice system. Verse 13. Now, when some days had passed, Agrippa, the king, and Bernice arrived at Caesarea and greeted Festus. Now, Agrippa was actually the brother of Bernice. Bernice was his sister. This was an incestuous relationship. Bernice had already been married 3 times, it would seem. She was married first when she was 13, which is child abuse, just saying. And then the next time it's 16, which is still child abuse. And it's probably, I don't know if it's even legal anymore, but anyway, so she was a powerful lady. and this is her brother. And they're the great-grandchildren of Herod the Great. And so all this kind of dynasty of the Herods drives me bonkers if I try and fathom out who was who. Because Agrippa, this is Agrippa the second. Agrippa the first was his father. So it would seem. Anyway, this couple, he's a kind of king of a region, and he's Jewish, she's Jewish, or I think they're Jewish anyway. Anyway, yes, whatever. Brain fry. I'm not very good at genealogies. But anyway, these guys were coming to Caesarea, and they greeted Festus. So the Roman governor was their host, and he was kind of welcoming them. Now, Felix was married, the guy who was before, was married to their sister, Drusilla. There you go. Who knew? Complicated and interesting. Lots of power relationships going on here. Bernice went on to have an affair with the general Titus, who became the emperor of Rome in time. So she got around and moved in very influential circles. Right. So here she is now before Paul with her brother, lover, Agrippa. And they stayed there many days. Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, "There is a man left prisoner by Felix. And when I was in Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews laid out their case against him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I answered them that it was not the custom of the Romans to give up anyone before the accused met the accusers face to face and had an opportunity to make his defense according to the charge laid against him." So he's saying, listen, we do have some kind of justice in this empire, and this is how it works. The accused gets to answer their accuser face to face. And so verse 17, "So when they came together here, I made no delay, but on the next day took my seat at the tribunal." And he really did. I mean, he's barely newly appointed to the post of procurator, and suddenly he's dealing with Paul's case. Now, I would imagine the Jews were pretty on it, and although they hadn't succeeded in their plot to kill him before, they were still determined. And although Felix hadn't got on and done the job, they were now going to put their case to make Festus face it and get on with it. And I would imagine they were lobbying him hard when he came into office to get this job done and deal with Paul, get him out their face. So verse 18, when the accusers stood up, they brought no charge in his case of such evils as I supposed. Rather, they had certain points of dispute with him about their own religion and about a certain Jesus who was dead, but whom Paul asserted to be alive. Being at a loss how to investigate these questions, I asked whether he wanted to go to Jerusalem and be tried there regarding them. But when Paul had appealed to be kept in custody for the decision of the emperor, I ordered him to be held until I could send him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said to Festus, "I would like to hear this man myself." "Tomorrow," said he, "you will hear him." So now Agrippa his interest is piqued, and he wants to have a little bit of a look at Paul and hear what he's got to say, because this story, I would imagine, rumours of Paul has already reached Agrippa and Bernice, and they would know of him because he was a cause celeb at the time. So so he says, right, okay, yeah, sure, tomorrow I'll set it up, you can come and see him and he'll talk. Verse 23, "So on the next day Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp." That means everybody had their best royal clothes on. They had everyone who was anyone in the region rocked up. So Paul, little humble Paul, who is this very, very ordinary servant of God. They say he had bandy legs and a hooked nose, and he wasn't very tall. Standing in front of all these glamorous, pampered, pompous people. And there he is to defend himself for doing nothing wrong, basically. So 23, on the next day, so they came with great pomp and they entered the audience hall with the military tribunes and the prominent men of the city. Then at the command of Festus, Paul was brought in, and Festus said, King Agrippa and all who are present with us, you see this man about whom the whole Jewish people has petitioned me both in Jerusalem and here, shouting that he ought not to live any longer. But I found that he'd done nothing deserving death. And as he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to go ahead and send him. But I have nothing definite to write to my lord about him. So he's saying, I really have not got a clue what I'm going to write to Caesar. Caesar's going to think I'm completely wasting his time. So he says, therefore I've brought him before you, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after we have examined him, I may have something to write. For it seems to me unreasonable in sending a prisoner not to indicate the charges against him. Right. This is like a courtroom drama, isn't it? That's unfolding. And I would imagine because they didn't have TV, this was probably quite quite entertaining for the nobility and the high up Romans and kind of people who had time and whatnot on their hands, to indulge their kind of, let's have a look. Let's look at this case. Oh, what's he saying? How interesting. So Agrippa, chapter 26, said to Paul, you have permission to speak for yourself. Then Paul stretched out his hand and made his defense. This is interesting, isn't it? They have his body language in there. I don't know how he started. He maybe put his hand up like that. Hey, everyone. Yo, dude. Or maybe it was, ladies and gentlemen, or friends, Romans and countrymen. I don't know. It was obviously, it's customary to stretch out your hand when you start to speak. And verse 2, I consider myself fortunate that it is before you, King Agrippa, that I'm going to make my defense today against all the accusations of the Jews, especially because you're familiar with all the customs and controversies of the Jews. So he knows Agrippa is very familiar with the whole drama that is around Judea at the time, because he's a king in this region. And where are we? So, and he's familiar with all the Jews and the customs and everything else. And so he says, therefore I beg you to listen to me patiently. Verse 4, my manner of life from my youth, spent from the beginning among my own nation and in Jerusalem, is known by all the Jews. They have known for a long time, if they're willing to testify, that according to the strictest party of our religion, I have lived as a Pharisee. And now I stand here on trial because of my hope in the promise made by God to our fathers, to which our 12 tribes hope to attain, as they earnestly worship night and day. And for this hope I am accused by Jews. O King, why is it thought incredible by any of you that God raises the dead? Now he's playing to the king. He's pulling the king in. He's saying, listen, I am a Jew. These people know me. They've watched me. They know what I'm like. They know I was a Pharisee. They know I was brought up in the strictest kind of category of Judaism going at the time, and so on and so on. And he says, this is ridiculous that I'm standing here on trial because of the promise that all of us believe. All of my fathers and our fathers and everybody else believes. And why would we think it's incredible that God raises the dead, O king? So he's trying to get the king into this conversation and not just leave him there as a passive bystander. Right. Verse 9, he says, I myself was convinced that I ought to do many things in opposing the name of Jesus of Nazareth, and I did so in Jerusalem. I not only locked up many of the saints in prison after receiving authority from the chief priests, but when they were put to death, I cast my vote against them, and I punished them often in the synagogues and tried to make them blaspheme. And in raging fury against them, I persecuted them even to foreign cities. Now, this was a matter of public. Everybody knew Paul had done this. So Paul's just really reiterating what is known by everyone. It's common knowledge that Paul was a bad, he was an enemy of the Christians, and he persecuted them to death. And even, but it's interesting, one little interesting little thing there. He says, I not only locked up many of the saints in prison, and the word there, saints, is an interesting word because it's the Greek word hagios, and it means made holy, and he's talking about these Christians as holy ones, which is interesting because that would have been a provocation possibly to the Jews as well, who would have thought, well, why are you calling them holy? They're following a false belief. So verse 12, he says, in this connection I journeyed to Damascus with the authority and commission of the chief priests. At midday, O king, I saw on the way a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, that shone around me and those who journeyed with me. And when we'd all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice saying to me in the Hebrew language, or in Aramaic, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads. And the image there is of an ox that's in the yoke being ploughing, and they're jabbing it in the backside with a proddy stick thing with a hard metal point on it to keep it moving. And the ox is trying to kick this thing. And Jesus is saying to Paul, you're like an ox that's trying to kick the goads. What's the matter with you? I'm trying to get you to go in the right way, and you're kicking against that, and you're going in the wrong way. You're stubborn. And he says, it's hard for you. It's going to end badly for you, Paul, if you take me on, because I'm going to win. Right, that's my paraphrase. Verse 15, and I said, who are you, Lord? And the Lord said to me, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. But rise, stand upon your feet, for I have appeared to you for this purpose, to appoint you as a servant and witness, martus, to the things in which you have seen me, and to those in which I will appear to you, delivering you from your people and from the Gentiles, to whom I am sending you, to open their eyes, that they may turn from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan to God, and they may receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. Right, so what's going on here? Paul is retelling the story which we've heard now about 3 times, and because we're reading the story through, and this is Paul's basic story, isn't it? This is the profound moment of conversion for Paul, and he's trying to explain to Agrippa how he got from being a hard-nosed Pharisee to becoming a great preacher of the gospel, the very message that he tried to eradicate. Paul's explaining to Agrippa the process, and we've seen again and again and again that these apostles were very they're very keen to tell the story. Hi Olga, good to see you. Privyet. They're very keen to tell the story of God's dealings with them. It was Paul's testimony. It's our testimony that is our story. It's unique to us. It's how God met with us. It doesn't matter whether people believe it or not. It's true for us. It happened to us. It's our experience. And someone said very wisely that the person who with an experience is always in a more powerful position than someone with an argument, or you know what how I mean. An argument is no. Oh, anyway, I can't remember the exact quote. So but his job now, he says, that God has appeared to him and is still going to appear. He says, you have seen. You are a witness to the things in which you have seen me, and to those in which I will appear to you. So I want you to keep being a witness of my appearing to you and the things I am saying to you. So it's like an ongoing relationship of revelation. This isn't a one-off moment of revelation for Paul. This is an ongoing life of revelation. And he says, I'm going to deliver you from your own people. I'm going to deliver you from the Gentiles. But actually, I'm sending you to the Gentiles to open their eyes so they may turn from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God. This is the purpose of the gospel. it's not just to make people feel better. It's not just to make people better people. It's to turn them from darkness to light, to open their eyes, turn them from darkness to light, and turn them from Satan to God. Wow. Do you know what? How we do water down and distill the gospel into something that's just a lifestyle choice, and it's got no power to save anybody, because it's just, oh yes, it's just one of many, many good ideas out there. The gospel is the power of God unto salvation, the preaching of the cross. Paul says, this is my mission, to rescue people from Satan to God. Completely switching kingdoms, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. And that word there again is hagios, or a version of it in Greek, and it means made holy. And he's saying, listen, these Gentiles are going to have a place among those who are sanctified, who are made holy by me, by Jesus. Wowzers. Right, verse 19. Therefore, O King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision, but declared first to those in Damascus, then in Jerusalem, and throughout the region of Judea, and also to the Gentiles, that they should repent and turn to God, mind, or change our heart. But it's evidenced by a change in life, a change in lifestyle. And so he's saying, this is what I've been doing. I've been preaching this stuff and teaching people. Right. Verse 21, for this reason the Jews seized me in the temple and tried to kill me. To this day I have had the help that comes from God, and so I stand here testifying both to small and great, saying nothing but what the prophets and Moses said would come to pass, that the Christ must suffer, and that by being the first to rise from the dead, he would proclaim light both to our people and to the Gentiles. So he's saying, listen, I'm here today. All I've done is preach exactly the same stuff that Moses and all the prophets were saying from the beginning. that the Christ must suffer, and that by being the first to rise from the dead, he would proclaim light both to our people and to the Gentiles. Isaiah 49 verse 6. 24. As he was saying these things in his defense, Festus, the Roman, said with a loud voice, Paul, you're out of your mind. Your great learning is driving you out of your mind. But Paul said, I'm not out of my mind, most excellent Festus, but I'm speaking true and rational words. For the king knows about these things, and to him I speak boldly. For I am persuaded that none of these things has escaped his notice. True, I'm sure. For this has not been done in a corner. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know you believe. And Agrippa said to Paul, in a short time, would you persuade me to be a Christian? And Paul said, whether short or long, I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me this day might become such as I am, except for these chains. So he is trying to pull in the net and see what fish he's caught, whether he's caught a big fat fish or whether he's caught some minnows. He doesn't mind, small or great, he'll have them. He wants to make converts. Paul is preaching the gospel. He knows he can be bold. He knows he's going to Rome because Jesus himself has told him. He can even make a personal appeal to the king and say, do you believe the prophets? I love it. Do you believe the prophets? I know you believe. Of course you do. And Agrippa said to Paul, in a short time. So he said, do you think you can convince me that easily, Paul? Do you think I'm that much of a pushover that I'll believe in a few moments? And Paul's like, wow, worth a try, I guess. I love it. And he's saying, I wish everybody was like me except for these chains. He's like, I wouldn't wish these chains on anybody, but do you know what? I wish you had the freedom that I have in my heart. And of course, Paul, when he's standing here, of course he's chained up, but he is blissfully free, isn't he? He's not enslaved to the fear of man. He's not bothered about whether they kill him or not. He knows he's still got some things to do, but inside he's as free as a bird. Verse 30. Then the king rose, and the governor and Bernice, and those who were sitting with them, and when they had withdrawn, they said to one another, "This man is doing nothing to deserve death or imprisonment." Oh, 2 pages. Eesh. And Agrippa said to Festus, "This man could have been set free if he had not appealed to Caesar." Yes, well, they've reached the same conclusion that everybody else has reached. There's nothing that really he can be tried for based on Jewish law or the Roman law. And if it was not for him appealing to Caesar, he would have been able to go free. But of course, if he was set free, he would be immediately seized upon by the Jews and killed in a kind of lynch mob killing. But Jesus himself has promised Paul that he's going to get to Rome, and his appeal to Caesar guarantees him safe passage. So they can't kill him now. He's under Roman armed guard 24/7, and he will get to Rome because Jesus has promised. Awesome. Have an amazing day. What a story, huh? Courtroom drama unfolding. Dear Paul, dear Apostle Paul, what a guy. We love you. Have an amazing day. Take care.